Hey everyone, welcome back to Ontario Gardening. So today I am just going to go over my top 5 favorite things to grow in the garden that I think everybody should grow. And then I'm going to go over a couple that I wouldn't grow again based on the experience I had with them and how they did in the garden. I'm not saying that this list is exclusive, that if you don't grow these things, you're not a gardener or whatever. Just people ask all the time, what would be the things that you grow in your garden? And these are the things that I recommend. And I do have reasons why I recommend each thing. I have them written down just so I can stay on topic. Otherwise, I definitely won't. So my first number one thing to grow, and it's actually my favorite thing to grow in the garden, is zucchini. And there's multiple reasons why. For one, it doesn't really take up a ton of space. It takes up more space than some things, but I've seen people grow them in containers or even in hanging baskets. So zucchini doesn't take up a whole lot of space. They're pretty easy to grow. They have continuous fruit, so you get stuff over and over and over again all season. And they are great, especially they preserve well, and they are great as a substitute if you don't eat a ton of meat. So beyond your baked goods like your muffins and your zucchini breads and that sort of thing, you can make burger patties, meatballs, noodles, fries. Like I could go on. You could put them in soups and stir fries, and there are so many ways to use zucchini. I even turned zucchini into pineapple this year. I have a video, I will link it below. It's a canning video. And you basically take the zucchini, peel them, cut them into chunks, and you turn them into pineapple and can it up. So you can use them as fresh fruit or on pizzas, however you would use pineapple. So zucchini, super versatile. I highly recommend growing zucchini if you haven't grown zucchini already. The second thing that I would highly recommend to grow are beans, but bush beans. And the reason you want to grow bush beans is because they're going to take up a lot less space than it would if you had vines climbing all over the place. Beans produce pretty fast. They usually don't take too long to grow. They produce a lot. Again, you could get a couple of beans off of, like rounds off of one plant. And I find a lot of people, like people who like to prep or preserve, so like your preppers, I guess they call them, if you want to have food on hand for a just in case scenario, beans are great because they are full of protein and full of fiber. So if you couldn't get meat or whatever the case may be, meat wasn't available, whatever the case may be, beans are a great substitute. So the third thing I would recommend is to grow tomatoes. Now, if you had have asked me 10 years ago, I would have said gross. I grew them just to grow them. I grew them just to grow them, but I didn't even really eat tomatoes. Like the thought of a tomato sandwich was disgusting until I was introduced into heirloom tomatoes, and of course that for me changed everything. But I'm not here to talk about heirlooms because as good as they are and as much as we like to eat those fresh, and of course do grow one or two of those to eat and enjoy, if you're talking for preserving and long-term storage and ways that you can use tomatoes, you're going to look for a determinate bush type variety. So the determinate will only get a certain height or a certain width. It's going to take up way less space, and you're going to have a determined amount of fruit so you know what's coming off that plant instead of a guessing game. Will it grow? Will it not grow? You can use tomatoes for tons of things. Sauces, salsas, chilies, sloppy joes, like you name it. You can can up so many different things with tomatoes. And so I highly recommend growing that determinate like bush variety. You could do those in containers. They're great. Number 4, radish. So growing radishes, there's not a ton of ways to necessarily preserve them. You can pickle them, you can can them. I actually like to freeze mine, and I put them into slices and I freeze them. And the reason that I do that is because I actually love them like fried or broiled. So you can do it in the air fryer or you can do it in the oven, sprinkle some salt, some garlic, toss them in olive oil, throw them in the oven, and they are delicious roasted like that. So I like to do them like that. But the reason is not necessarily that I'm saying radish for preserving. The reason is because they have such a quick turnover. Most radishes are like 20, 21 days. There's even some varieties out there that are like 17 days. So you can get a continuous crop over and over and over and over again all summer. Not only are you eating them, but you're just going to keep getting them. So if you're looking for an abundance of food in a short amount of time, radishes might be the thing for you. And number 5, carrots. And the reason I chose carrots is because they're super easy to grow. If I see like a lot of people have issues growing carrots, I will link a video below where I showed how I did mine. I have never once, even the very first time that I ever gardened, had an issue germinating and growing carrots directly sowed outside into the ground. I have like a trench system that I do. Like I said, I'll link it below. It's in my early what you can plant in early spring video. I kind of show you how to do it there. But carrots, they grow well. You get an abundance of them, and you can actually use both the top and the bottom of the carrot. So of course you eat the bottoms, and there's different ways you can preserve those, canning, freezing, whatever. But the tops you can eat as well. So you can use them like for fresh eating, in salads, you can use them in soups, you can use them as a garnish, there's McPesto, there's tons of different ways that you can use the top of a carrot. So I would suggest that one as well. And as a bonus to this, I don't have seeds, potatoes. I am going to say potatoes because, one, they store really well for a really long time. So as long as they're kept in like a nice, cool, dark spot, people use them all winter even. Like you could harvest them in early winter and still be eating them come summer. So potatoes are great, and they kind of like reseed themselves, if that makes sense, because if the potato starts growing eyes, you can chip that off and put that in the ground and it will start growing another plant. So even if you got grocery store potatoes and they started growing eyes, you can take that off and plant that in the ground. So really potatoes can be like self-serving and self-recycling. So I think that's really cool. And potatoes, and they're very filling. If you had even one potato, it's nice and filling. So, you know, if something ever happened, you could have a potato and some beans. There's your protein, your fiber, your starch, and you're going to be full and feel full, and it's not a lot of food. So those are my things that, in my personal opinion, would be great to grow in the garden, especially if you're a beginner and you do eat those things. Things I will never grow again. And this is just, again, based on the experience that I had growing them. That's not to say don't try them. If there's something on this list that you really want to try, go for it. Why not? And then you can see whether you would like to do it again or not. But these just personally aren't for me. Number 1, I don't have the seed packet, but I do have this, cucamelons. These stupid little things. So I was super excited to grow them like most people are. I'm in Southern Ontario where I have actually one of the longer growing seasons in Ontario. I have an 156-day growing period. A lot of people don't even have that. So if you're up north, I would say don't even bother, because you're going to have to start these things like 3 months before you can even get them outside. So anyways, I started them early. I have a video link, I'll link it below as well, about doing cucamelons in Ontario. It's not that they're impossible, but they like really hot conditions. They love the sun, they love the warmth. They're actually a product of Mexico, I believe it is. That's where they originated. They're actually known as also known as the Mexican sour gherkin or mouse melon. They're like the size of a grape. They look like a watermelon on the outside, but they taste like cucumber on the inside. And they were so finicky to get started. The seeds to germinate were spotty at best. The ones that I did get germinated, they took forever to start inside. I had to start them in like February, and I don't even transplant them till May. Once they got outside, they just took over everything. They're like similar to a loaf or any other climbing stuff. It was just, they were everywhere. They produced, I would say I grew 2 plants that actually made it outside. And out of the 2 plants, I would say I got 2 like liter or quart mason jars full from those 2 plants. Fresh eating, they didn't even taste very good. Like they just tasted like a cucumber, but like with a really crunchy shell on the outside that was almost hard to choke down. I actually ended up pickling all of them just so that they would be soft enough and have some sort of flavor to even eat them. Yeah, I just wouldn't suggest. It's similar to a cucumber. They're hard to preserve. You can't really do much with them. Fun to grow, especially if you have kids. Like it's really cool to like see them grow. So if you've never grown them, that one specifically, and you want to try, cool. And if you're in places like Florida and California, they're going to love you. But for me personally, I tried it, I came, I conquered. I won't do that again. Number 2, shelling peas. Snow peas, different story. Snow peas, you can put in stir fries, you can fresh eat them, the whole thing, cool. Shelling peas, on the other hand, in my personal opinion, take up so much space. They climb all over the place to get like such little harvest. I did a ton of plants the one year, and after you sat there and shelled them all, like how much work to shell all those pea pods open. And at the end of the day, I got like a cereal bowl full of peas. That's going to last us like one meal, maybe 2 if we made a stretch. And at the end of the day, I can go to the grocery store or wherever. I mean, if you couldn't buy them in the grocery store, different story, but for a whole bag of frozen peas, it's like $1. And really, if you took peas out of my diet, I'm really not going to miss them that much. It's not really benefiting my diet that much. So really, it was such a waste of time, in my opinion. So the sugar peas, cool. Like I said, you can eat that whole pod. You're eating them and they're great, but the shelling peas, I'm going to say that's a no for me. Number 3, jack-o'-lantern pumpkin specifically. So I'm talking like the ones you grow for Halloween. I would grow sugar pumpkins again. I actually might even try them again this year because you can use those for your baking in pies. Those are the ones that you would use to make like lattes, or you're eating them. They got a good flavor. They're nice and sweet. Awesome. They're small, they're compact, they're easier to grow. These jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, let me tell you, they grew out of my garden bed, even with being trellised, all over the lawn. Anytime we wanted to lawn mow, we had to lift up these pumpkins like it was a carpet and go underneath them. Once they started getting really, really big, that became impossible to do. You also, once they're really, really big, have to worry if they're sitting on the ground or on like soil about rotting underneath. So you have to put something underneath, or if you have them on a vine, you would have to support them because they would get so heavy. You're going to have to do that in order to make sure that they don't rot and so that critters don't come and eat them, because squirrels and mice and stuff love pumpkin. So honestly, for the amount of space that it took, the amount of maintenance required to keep up with these stupid plants, I would say to have them on your front porch, especially because you can eat them, but they're not going to be that tasty. They're really not that useful in any food dishes. So for all that trouble to just put them on your front porch for a couple weeks, no. It was fun to try one time, like I said, same with the cucamelons. If you've got kids or whatever, grandkids, and you have the extra space to mess around, awesome, go for it. But if you don't have a lot of space and you're looking for something that's going to be, produce well for a reason, I would say jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, not it. Number 4, I only have 5, so I'll stop ranting in a minute. Vine green beans. So I just touched on bush green beans, so I wouldn't grow vine green beans ever again. I grew vine yellow beans. Again, they took up so much space, grew all over, even trellised, for really the same amount or less beans than I got on my bush beans. And I did find with the vine beans, when you snapped them off, they just didn't grow back at the rate that the bush bean does. I can sometimes get 3 harvests off of one bush plant in a season. Usually I get 1 or 2 fresh harvests, and then the 3rd harvest I leave and let go to seed so that I can save them and don't have to buy seeds next year. I've never found that with the vine beans. I found that usually it was like a rip, one and done, and if I was lucky, I might get a 2nd harvest, but they probably would dry out and go to seed before I ever got them. And last but not least, onions from set. And when I say set, I mean when you go to the nursery or your box stores and you buy like the little tiny onions, they're called a set. I wouldn't grow them from set again. I would grow them from seed, and this is why. I find that the sets, one, they take up a little bit more space when you're planting them, which is fine, but they don't grow as big as when you go from seed, and they're not worth the value. So when you're buying a set, like a bag of sets, you get a lot less in that package than you would if you bought a packet of seeds. And the sets are a lot more money. So you can pay upwards of $10 for a bag of sets, and you could pay like $1 for a pack of onion seeds and get like 50 onion seeds versus like 25 onion seeds or onion sets. So just in my personal opinion, and again, I find that if you grow, now onion seeds are a lot harder to grow. They're a lot more finicky. You have to start them inside a lot earlier if you're not in a long growing season. So I guess in terms of if you're looking at it that way for convenience wise, definitely grow onions from sets. But if you're looking at like being sustainable and saving money, that sort of thing, I would grow them from seed because they're definitely going to do better and get bigger and just be a lot cheaper. It's going to cost you like pennies for an onion as opposed to, 10, 15 cents. At that point, you might as well, in my opinion, just go to the grocery store and buy a bag of onions at the grocery store because it's not really that expensive. But anyways, thanks for listening to me chat in another video. I hope this helps somebody in deciding what they should grow or what they might want to grow in a new garden or in future garden seasons. Follow us along and consider subscribing for more awesome gardening content. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.